Hello everyone and welcome to the snack bar where you sometimes get your weekly bites of everything movies and sometimes you don't. My name is Geraldine and with me I have...
Hi, I'm Jed Young.
So last week I said that we were going to review Jason Bourne again, but the reviews have been lackluster so far and I don't want to waste my time watching a show when I can watch another show that I know I'll really enjoy, so we're going to review Sing Street instead. So I'm assuming, Jed, you're gonna talk about Jason Bourne. So, what's up with that movie? Is it good? Is it not?
Alright, let's do Jason Bourne first. For me, it's really averagey. It's just in the middle. It's not a terrible movie, but it's not a great movie either. There's a lot in it that feels like it's done just for the sake of it. It's not a really necessary sequel. But at the same time, it tackles certain topics which are relatively topical, and topics that are topical, so I don't sound like a very good writer right now, do I? Anyway, this movie sees Matt Damon return to the role of Jason Bourne after 9 years. And the whole plot has to deal with a social network site that is very much like Facebook. And the founder is refusing to allow the CIA access to the personal data of its users. And the CIA chief is played by Tommy Lee Jones. And he's very power hungry and kind of corrupt. So he's on the tail of Jason Bourne, but because he's really old-fashioned, he needs the head of his cyber division, played by Alicia Vikander, to hunt Jason Bourne for him.
So, did they even mention the previous film with, what's his name?
No,
Hawkeye.
there isn't anything, they did not mention anything in the dialogue about the Bourne legacy, but there's a scene where you see a computer monitor and the name of the outcome program is on the list together with Treadstone and Blackbriar, which are the other CIA Black Ops programs which are being run. And the Black Ops program in this movie is called Iron Hand.
Well, at least they acknowledged it, sort of.
Yeah, if you're paying attention closely and you know to look for that, you'll find it. But I was a little bit disappointed that they did not at least give a bit of a nod in the dialogue to the events of Bourne Legacy. Honestly, I enjoyed the Bourne Legacy, and I think it was a lot more entertaining than Jason Bourne.
Yeah, I heard. And, I mean, as much as I hated X-Men 3, I love that Fox will never deny that that movie exists. Even if they did the soft reboot, they still exist. They still admit that that movie exists. And I like it when a studio gets to own up to their mistakes. And they don't hide that that movie didn't happen, or they don't hide that the movie happened. So at least, Jason Bourne kind of acknowledged what happened in the previous film.
Yeah, at the same time, I do not think the Bourne Legacy is a mistake. I think that there's every opportunity for a good crossover where you bring Matt Damon and Jeremy Renner together in the same film. And I thought that was where this was headed, but it wasn't on the cards at all, apparently. A Jeremy Renner cameo was not even considered.
Oh well.
Yeah, so I guess the main issue for me is that it should feel like a huge event. It should feel really triumphant that Jason Bourne is coming back, and this movie is more or less going through the motions. It's going through the motions well enough. It's quite competently put together, and the plot makes sense, but there's so much shaky cam, which is Paul Greengrass's style, and it really ruins a lot of the action sequences, especially the climactic set piece, which is the huge car chase down the Las Vegas Strip, which we see in the trailer, and that looked awesome from the trailer. I think that the Las Vegas Strip is a very iconic location to tear up in an action set piece. The ending of Con Air did such a great job of it, so I was looking forward to the car chase in this one, but it was so incoherent, so difficult to follow.
Okay. So you wouldn't recommend it, or would you say just give it a try?
I think it's okay. I gave it a 3 out of 5. I was actually bouncing between a 3.5 and a 3, but at the end, I guess I did not like it as much as I was hoping to. Yeah.
Yep.
The issues that it tries to tackle are done slightly better, partially because of the format on TV shows like Homeland. So, yeah, they mentioned Snowden twice, and it's kind of that thing where any espionage movie has to name drop Snowden to sound relevant. I got a bit of a feeling out of that.
Okay, so I think maybe I'll watch it one day because I do like the Jason Bourne trilogy. I've never seen the previous film before because I heard it's not very good and I haven't gotten around to watch them yet. But
okay.
I think I'm kind of happy at the same time that this movie doesn't really tie into what's the previous one called?
The Bourne Legacy.
Born Legacy, yeah. So I don't need to watch that film before I watch this
Yeah,
film.
not at all.
I do plan on watching this film though because I really like Matt Damon as Jason Bourne, and I I I don't know. I'm still excited to see what this is all about.
Sure, yeah. Uh, I think it's a little bit disappointing if you're hoping for something more eventful, but if you're a fan of the trilogy, it retains the style and the tone of that, if not exactly the freshness. So
Yeah.
it's not a complete loss. And I think that if they want to do a fifth movie, fifth or sixth, depending on how you're counting, I hope they bring Jeremy Renner back in, or I hope they fold that in, because I don't want it to be that the Bourne Legacy is something they try to sweep under the rug, as you are suggesting, with with X-Men, and yet Fox did acknowledge X-Men. So I don't think the Bourne Legacy is so embarrassing as for Universal to be like, oh, that did not happen. Please pay no attention to this.
Yeah. Okay, so did you watch any other movie besides the one that I want to watch, but you can't talk about?
Yeah,
So,
I
well,
can't talk about that one, and I'm really itching to, so I can't wait for next week. Anyway, the other movies that I watch besides Suicide Squad are Train to Busan and Nerve, and so I'll talk briefly about those two movies. Train to Busan is a South Korean zombie thriller, and I actually liked it quite a bit.
okay. So how does it rank up according to all the zombie movies or zombie TV shows we've been getting these days, or zombie games if you play them?
It's interesting because I think Korean audiences are not extremely familiar with the zombie subgenre, like they're not inundated with it the way Western audiences are. So there's kind of a freshness to it, and the approach that the director took with this, I think the director has this is his feature film live action debut, and he's previously done a few pretty edgy animated films. Like they sound really dark. I've not seen them. So it establishes the virus. The opening scene is pretty well done, and it starts off from quite a realistic, grounded perspective, and it shows you the everyman's point of view. The main character is this guy who is a fund manager, and he is going through a divorce with his wife. His wife lives in Busan, so his young daughter says, "For my birthday, Dad, can you take me to go and see Mom?" So very begrudgingly, he takes his daughter on the high-speed KTX train from Seoul to Busan, but the train is overrun with zombies.
Okay. So I can see the stakes here, and the heart of the film is probably the daughter and the father, I guess.
Yeah, there's.
Unless she dies early on, just like Last of Us.
I will not confirm nor deny that plot point, but not only do we have them, there are several other characters. There's also this guy and his wife is pregnant. And what is interesting about that character is that he's both the comic relief and the action hero. He's the guy who does the most physical action, goes out and punches the zombies. So I think that that's something a Hollywood movie would not do, where your comic relief, like a bit of a pudgy guy, is also your action hero. And I thought that was fun, that our protagonist, he's not like Brad Pitt in World War Z, where he's, the world's greatest dad, and he just happens to be awesome at everything. So our protagonist is not that. And there are many instances where you see his selfish impulses. One of the things that the movie does very well is a lot of social commentary about the different levels of society and what they value in Seoul, in Korea. And there's one scene where they find a homeless man in the train bathroom, and there's this guy, like he's a wealthy guy, and he warns the young daughter of our main characters, is if you don't study, you'll end up like him. Things like that. And I found that gives it a lot of verisimilitude. Like the zombie element, there are moments where the zombies are a little bit silly in their design or the way they are performed by the various actors, but by grounding it in society and by touching on things that are kind of resonant to that people can relate to, that makes it work.
Okay, so is this more of a horror film or is it more of a drama?
I would classify.
It sounds more of a drama.
It has dramatic elements, but I would classify it as a thriller. I think that the zombies themselves are not super, super scary because they're not actually very gory. You don't have half their arms falling off or their entrails hanging out. It's just their eyes cloud over and they're rabid and they bite people. But there's quite a bit of action, which I enjoyed, and they make very good use of the claustrophobia inherent in using a high-speed train as your setting.
This sounds almost like the Chris Evans movie. Snow something also.
Snowpiercer. That's actually a very good point. It is kind of like Snowpiercer. Yeah, it's kind of like that. And I think that there are certain moments that are a little bit melodramatic where the acting is pretty overboard, and a lot of the sequences, the tension relies on people holding back a door while zombies break back the door, and they repeat this sequence quite a number of times. But I guess that's one of the exigencies of a zombie movie, is the sequences will tend to be repetitive because the threat has been established as this type of threat, and it just keeps repeating. I wasn't really bothered by that, but it's just one of the things that happens in this genre.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm afraid of zombies, so I don't usually watch my zombie movies. The last zombie movie I watched was World War Z,
which is,
and it scared the crap out of me, so I think I'm gonna lay off zombies for a while.
Okay, yeah, then I think you'd better give A Train to Busan a wide number. But I liked it quite a bit. Normally, I guess this is my prejudice, but I'm very wary when Asian movies try to do genres that are established in Hollywood, and it always looks like they're trying to imitate stuff that's already been done better by people with better resources. But I think this was handled pretty well.
Okay.
Yeah, and finally Nerve. So Nerve is this little it's not really indie, but it's a teen-aimed thriller. It's based on a young adult novel by Jean Ryan, and it's about an online augmented reality game called Nerve. And the whole idea is this game, there are two categories of users of the game. There are the watchers who pay to watch, and they're the players. And the players partake in dares, which are voted on by the community, and they escalate in risk but also escalate in monetary reward. So the main character is played by Emma Roberts, and she's this shy high school senior. She's about to graduate. She's about to go into college. And her friend, played by Emily Mead, she's really outgoing, and she pushes Emma Roberts into playing this game. So the game pushes her way out of her comfort zone and throws her together with this stranger played by Dave Franco, this mysterious sexy guy on a motorcycle. And it all spirals out of control, and there's a huge conspiracy, and they get a lot more than they bargained for as they're caught up in Nerve.
I've seen the trailer for it. It looks kind of eh.
Yeah, it's kind of, and on the whole I liked it because it's very slick, and there is quite a bit of tension, but it tries so hard to pander to teens, and it's one of those movies that will be dated really soon, but it'll be dated in an interesting way, where like 10, 20 years from now you'll watch this and you'll be like, so that's what it was like to be online in 2015, 2016.
Okay, how were the performances? I don't the main girl, Emma Roberts, I don't really like her.
Okay.
But was she good in this? She always seems to play like the bitch or the innocent one, and I liked her in Nancy Drew. The first show that she's ever been on, it's called Unfabulous and was on Nickelodeon, and I thought she was just terrible in it. But I still watched the show because I was a kid. But yeah, I grew up with her. I never really liked her, and she looks like she's playing the same type of character again. So how was her performance, and how was Dave Franco's performance?
It kind of is. I feel that honestly their performances were pretty good, but I think they're miscast. Like, I had a really big problem buying Emma Roberts as the awkward, unpopular outcast. I mean, look at her. Yep. There's no way she would be ignored by the football jock, as she is in the film. At the same time, I don't think Dave Franco is that convincing as a mysterious, roguish bad boy. I think that's more of his brother's domain. And I don't think they have explosive chemistry, but I liked the both of them together enough, and I think that there are enough stakes and the plot moves quickly enough that you root for them and you want to see them succeed.
Okay.
So, but I guess
I'm still gonna skip it. It doesn't sound like my type of film. I guess, you know what, I actually made this podcast so that we can discuss about movies that I don't usually watch.
Right.
But, money and time.
Yeah,
which
you've
is
got
something
to prioritize.
I'm kind of short on them, so
totally,
it's nice that you get to watch them and I can sort of judge whether I will enjoy myself or not.
And like the whole moral or the message at the center of the movie is pretty heavy-handed. It's by the directors of Catfish, that documentary about the guy who got into a relationship with a woman online and she turned out to be not exactly who she was saying she was. So there's this whole thing where it's in an indictment of online anonymity, where it's like because you're anonymous online, you can do whatever you want, and the movie tries to wag a finger at that. But at the same time, it makes this game that is supposed to be very dangerous and very risky look really glamorous. So it's one of those instances where it's trying to have its cake and eat it too, and it's not 100% successful in that regard.
Yeah, okay. So recommend it, don't recommend it?
I'm on the fence. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think that it's as like a throwaway thriller, something to watch in an afternoon, and it's pretty short and it's really fast paced. It's not too bad. But yeah, it's not like high on the list for me. It's okay.
Okay. So, that's all right?
Yeah, I guess that's about it. I also attended the premiere for the Minds Film Festival, and this is jointly organized by the Movement for the Intellectually Disabled of Singapore and the Singapore Film Society. So their opening film is this movie called My Feral Heart, which I watched, and I got to interview the director, this woman from the UK named Jane Gull, who made her feature film directorial debut with the movie. It's not a bad movie. It's got a really interesting lead performance by this man named Stephen Brandon, and he's a man who has Down syndrome in real life, and he is playing a character in the movie who has Down syndrome. So this is sort of like every time you watch a Hollywood movie where it's a big name star pretending they have a disability and you kind of feel a bit icked out by that, this is something of a remedy to that because it's a much smaller project. Yeah.
Okay. So will it be out in theaters or is it just selected?
It's a festival screening. They've sold out of both showings, but they've added a third showing that is on the 13th of August. So go look it up, the Minds Film Festival. I think the tickets are being sold via the Golden Village website if you're interested in watching My Feral Heart. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So let's talk about Sing Street now.
Yeah.
Which I saw your review. You said that it's your favorite film of the year.
I like it so much, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like it as much as you did, but let's just talk about that. What's Sing Street about, first and foremost?
Alright, so Sing Street is set in inner city Dublin in 1985, and the main character, played by Ferdia Walsh-Pillow, is Connor Lawler, and he's an aspiring singer-songwriter. His parents, played by Aidan Gillen and Maria Doyle Kennedy, are going through a very rough patch in their marriage, and it's having quite the effect on him and his siblings. We have Kelly Thornton as Anne, his sister, and his brother is Brendan, played by Jack Rayner. So because of the financial difficulties they're facing, Connor is relocated to a new school, a Christian Brothers school called Sing Street. So as he goes into school, he has to deal with bullies, and he also has to deal with a very unreasonable, very fierce principal named Brother Baxter, who is played by Don Wycherley. He meets this girl named Rafina, played by Lucy Boynton, and he's immediately smitten with her. So she says she's a model, and he goes up to talk to her, and he claims that he's in a band. So all of a sudden, he finds himself in a situation where he has to throw together a band. So one of his new friends is the enterprising Darren, played by Ben Carolyn, who acts as the band's manager. And they quickly add musicians, and they also add Eamon, played by Mark McKenna, who is a super talented multi-instrumentalist, and he agrees to help Connor write the songs. So they put together this band, and one of their influences is Connor's brother Brendan, who advises him on what artistic routes to take and gives him advice, and it's kind of harsh to him at the same time. So they go on this whole journey as they try to form their band, perform, write songs, with the ultimate goal of perhaps moving to London and escaping the drabness and the repressiveness of Dublin and of their school.
Okay. So you really liked this film. I thought it was... Yeah, I really liked it too, not to the extent as you did. It's a really nice, small, lovely film in the middle of all these huge blockbuster films.
Yeah,
and I'm really glad I get to watch it. I remember the wrong timing for the film, so I think I missed about let's say 5 minutes of the film.
Okay.
Like he just met Rafina by the time I got to the theater, so I'm not sure how much I missed.
Alright, so you missed, basically at the beginning, you missed the conversation that the father is having with him, explaining why he has to switch schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I missed that, but it was kind of easy to catch up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you didn't miss too much.
Yeah, I thought that the film was really sweet. A little bit too sweet. I didn't really like the message at the end, but that's besides the point. The acting and the music, though, I think those were the two that really stood out from the film.
Yeah.
And this is why I love watching indie films. It's because it's all about the characters and it's all about the acting.
It is.
And
yeah.
I think they've really chosen the perfect casting for the two main characters, which is Rafina and Connor. I think those two have okay chemistry, but I like their characters, even though their characters are not exactly the type of characters that I would like.
Mm-hmm.
And they were charming enough to bring across this movie and, to see their journey. And I feel like because the movie is about both of them, a lot of characters, except the brother, they've been like shafted to the side. And the whole movie is about him forming a band just to impress this girl. And I feel like after they form the band is not as important as the girl, and it's just him chasing after her. I mean, you may feel differently, but that's how I felt. And I didn't have a problem with that. I liked the love story that came with it, even though there was some points where I just thought it was a little bit too cheesy, it was a little bit too much. And that's not how real relationships work out. I don't know, that's just me. But yeah, I liked this film a lot, and mostly because of the actors and mostly because of the music. The story I'm not a huge fan of, but like I said, the actors carried the movie, and because of that, I enjoyed myself. And the comedy, the humor in this film is really good too.
Yeah, it is really funny. It's a lot funnier than I was expecting it to be. And this comes from John Carney, who is the writer-director who is most famous for doing Once and who did Begin Again a couple of years ago. This feels like a very personal project, and it feels like after Begin Again, which was very Hollywood, he was like, okay, I'm not a huge fan of this. I want to go back to what I'm most comfortable with. And this feels like a very personal project. He himself went to Sing Street. He attended the school that the film is set in. And the production notes are very careful to note that Sing Street today is very different from what is depicted in the school. But yeah, I think that when you say this is a feel-good movie, people want to roll their eyes. And I think that this handled that mix of sweetness and a little bit of cynicism very well. And there are certain points which surprised me by how dark they were, but they are very, very small parts that are sort of, they move on very quickly from it. But if you think about what the characters are saying, it reveals very, very dark backstories and very dark plot points. And I thought that there's a lot of this is carried by nostalgia. It's carried by the affection you might have for that particular period of music. And that's why I said it reminded me of Super 8. Because not only are they forming a band, the whole linchpin of it is music videos. And this is the era when music videos were just becoming popular. And MTV was a brand new thing. And it was very novel that a band would have a video to go along with their song, and the attempts where they show them trying to recreate a music video in their own style with their own crappy equipment, I was very charmed by that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the love story really, really got me, because when they first showed Lucy Boynton's character, Rafina, I thought, oh no, they're gonna make her this inaccessible, like really icy, unattainable paradigm of perfection. But no, she's actually really friendly. She throws herself into it. She wants to help them out. She doesn't look down on any of them. But at the same time, there's still conflict. There's still misunderstanding. And I really like that the role she found within the band, even though she's not actually a part of the band. And I think they developed the characters in for me at least, in quite a satisfying manner, because there is very much an element of fantasy. There is very much an element of wish fulfillment in this, because I think it's relatable, but it's definitely not realistic, because there's no way that that things would go that smoothly. Like it isn't portrayed as oh, it's all plain sailing for them, but as a band, their evolution and how they improve their sound, their look, the way they make videos, it's a lot more polished than you would get from like an amateur band formed by school kids. But yeah, that's the magic of movies.
Yeah, the way they formed their band reminded me a lot of Ghostbusters, as in they decided, hey, let's form this band, and then there's suddenly a band, and they suddenly have a name, and they're just improving themselves, and they just need that one gig or that one music video for everything to get started on.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And that's not how it is. Like I'm sure that there are bands that have started this way, but what are the odds, that you find a perfectly competent drummer, bassist, keyboardist,
Yeah.
singer, songwriter, all in the same school, in the same class as you, in the same
Mm-hmm.
block.
Same age
Yeah,
as
so
well.
so that there is an element of fantasy, and because there's an element of fantasy to the making the band part of the film, I was able to go along with the romance, even though there are points where it stretches credibility a little bit, because I knew like what the tone of the movie was going for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it got me really fast. Like I went along for the ride really, really fast. I'm not sure whether you call it suspension of disbelief. Maybe you would, but yeah, I was
I
on
think
board.
it is.
Yeah, it is. So I was on
Because
board.
everything was way too coincidental.
Yeah, at the same time, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm gonna cut you off here, but at the same time, it did not ring false. Like there are movies where they're trying to be cutesy and they're trying for nostalgia, and immediately it smells funny to me, and I'm like, nah, I check out. And it wasn't like that for this. So yeah,
Okay. So, speaking of nostalgia, like I just realized that a lot of things nowadays, they seem to want to bring back the 80s. Like we have Sing Street, we just had Stranger Things, and Ready Player One. It's coming out soon by Steven Spielberg, and that's gonna be 80s too.
yeah.
I've read. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I've read Ready Player One. It is just Twilight for boys. Don't read it. It's terrible. I hope they improve the movie, but I highly. Oh man, like what a terrible book.
I have a
Okay,
friend who
let's go
says
on to
it's her
Sing Street.
favorite book.
Oh really? Oh, it's just this guy who talks about how much he loves the 80s and why it's so cool. And there's no story to it until the romance comes, and the romance is so terrible. But okay, anyway.
It's all
let's-
references, right? Like it's all
Yeah, it's all
yeah.
references. And I didn't grow up the 80s, so like I couldn't understand half of them.
Right, yeah. So here's the thing. I guess what we're talking about when we talk about nostalgia is that it's quite easy when you look at something and you see that, all right, this is nostalgia for the sake of it, and they're marketing this on the strength of the nostalgia, and that happens very often with long belated sequels that come out 20, 30 years after, and it also happens with stuff like Pixels, which is, Pixels is a terrible Adam Sandler comedy, and they just bolt on the references to those classic games because they kind of like, this is what you like, right? Here, have more.
And the thing is, Pixels, it has references to 80s that kids don't understand, and their jokes are exactly just for kids.
Yeah.
So I have no idea who their audience is.
Exactly, yeah. So that is an example of it done really wrong. And like we are referencing Stranger Things, and I think Stranger Things is made with such a profound love and understanding for the time period, but at the same time, the Duffer Brothers are very conscious that if we make just a nostalgia reference fest without any story to carry it, people won't be interested. So there's a really strong backbone. There's a very propulsive mystery, and you want to keep watching, not for the 80s references, but because you want to find out what happens next.
Yeah, and I think Sing Street does that so well because you can tell that there's a huge love for the 80s music or 80s rock and roll, and at the same time it has a good story to bring it along. So I guess because of that, you get into the story and you get into this film even though you don't need to know the music from the era. Like for me, I didn't know half the bands that they were talking about.
Right, yeah.
Because I'm not a music person. I like orchestral music more, and rock and roll, pop music, all those stuff, they're not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to learn about these songs and to learn why people love rock and roll. And it's like I get it. Like I mean, I probably don't, but I sort of get it. Like this is why you love this music, because you can write what you want to write and you can say what you want to say through rock and roll. And I think that's really cool, and I appreciate that there's this film to teach me why people love the 80s music.
Yeah, and what I enjoyed so much is that you cannot separate out the music from the story. The music and the story go hand in hand, and they enrich each other and they push each other along, which is how it should be for a musical. There are certain musicals where you feel like the music is extra flavoring, and if you pull it out, you can still have a story that stands alone without those songs. And I feel that you can't do that for this. It's beautiful, and the music, it has to be enough of an homage and yet still have something original of itself, which is such a difficult balance to walk. And yeah, they did such a good job with that. The songs are co-written by John Carney and Gary Clark, who is himself a veteran 80s composer. So they have the experience of someone who was in the inside. And then,
Yeah, that's awesome.
which is a great strategy. And I'm trying to look up the other songwriters, Ken and Carl Pappenfuss, who are from a band called Relish, Graham Henderson and Zamo Riffman, and then the song that's over the end credits is co-written by Adam Levine. And
I did not recognize his voice, and his voice is super recognizable in this industry, but
yeah, it's recognizable
reason,
because it's annoying.
Oh, I like him. He's alright.
I really don't like Adam Levine. Anyway, so yeah, like you were saying how you're not so much a fan of pop music. I am very much a fan of movie soundtracks, and I don't know stuff very much beyond that.
Same. Yeah.
So I know.
Oh man, you and I.
Like,
this is really bad. I think we have too similar of taste to actually judge other things, but yeah.
No, we will disagree, and we've already disagreed a little bit over the course of this one. So when we get to the love story, I think we'll disagree a lot. Anyway, I mainly know Duran Duran and Aha because they did James Bond themes, and that's why I know them.
Yeah, same.
The living daylights. And then the Duran Duran is The View to a Kill, I think. I always mix up which band did which one because they're almost like right after each other. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are good songs, and there's a nice mix of existing songs and original songs. And there's one bit which I thought was really clever. It's a sad bit in the movie, and the score is like a slow piano instrumental of Take On Me, which is the song that he was trying to sing when Rafina told him sing something. And he like mangled this song, he sang it really off key. So the song he was trying to sing, they play an instrumental version of that later in the film. I thought that was a nice touch.
Okay, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the music and what songs did you like and what songs did you not like.
I can't tell you what music I like because that's a spoiler.
Okay.
I think we should take this like to the spoiler section.
Alright, sure.
Okay, but anyway, before we go on, okay, love story, let's do the spoilers too. How about the characters, like other characters besides Connor and Rafina?
Oh, okay.
I feel like Father Baxter, he was a little bit two-dimensional. I don't like his character, and I know you're not supposed to like his character, but I don't like him from a writing standpoint,
right.
And not really as a... Because, he's the evil, abusive priest and stuff like that. Like, it's... I want a three-dimensional villain most of the time, and he's just boring for a film that has really good characters inside.
Here's why I think it works. I think it works because Brother Baxter is a symbol. And Brother Baxter is supposed to stand in and crystallize all the terrible memories you have had of school and all the terrible memories John Carney has had. And here's the thing, I find it very interesting when you see how strongly creative people, especially writers, dislike their time in school and how they look back on it and how their writing tends to be wish fulfillment, tends to be fantasy. And because schools in England was so strict and was so repressive, you have writers like Roald Dahl, where it's always about how the kids triumph over the evil adults. And I feel that Brother Baxter is something like a Roald Dahl villain. And so that's why I don't mind the character, even though he is very underdeveloped and very two-dimensional.
Well, I guess it's because I'm more of a respect your elder kind of person. Like, I know adults are not right all the time, but I don't like that you have this message of, oh, the authority is always terrible and they're evil and we need to show them who's the man, Like, I don't like that kind of storyline or villain. And I don't mind if a teacher is a villain, but at least give us a reason why he or she is like that and not just a stickler for rules because he's the principal or whatever. And like, I mean, do you really have to make him that abusive to the point of almost drowning him?
I honestly believe that could have happened. I think that it's perfectly possible that a teacher could have done something like that, a principal could have done something like that, and I think there are cases where teachers have done worse. And anyway, so here's what I thought about the whole idea of standing up to authority. I think that if all of the teachers were uniformly terrible, then that would have been a problem. But he's got he's got a nice teacher who encourages him in his artistic pursuits, and And I also like that they had a bit of a goofy moment where there's a teacher who's so old he doesn't know he's supposed to be teaching French instead of Latin. and like once you do that, it's like okay, you know the tone of humor.
It's just that one villain.
Yeah, you're not supposed to take it seriously, and the characters are going to be exaggerated. So even though the characters are like the protagonists are quite well written, they're still exaggerated in their own way. But I went along with it, and I think that the tone is consistent enough that you don't question when you have like things that are overblown in that way. It's not way overblown. It's like embellished for dramatic effect. That's how I found it. Like it felt like Brother Baxter was a combination of the most negative and ugliest traits of principals or teachers, and it's true that it's not a general statement that John Carney is trying to make. But I kind of like that. I thought that was a good symbol to serve as the antagonist of the movie.
Oh, then here's my other problem with this film, which you mentioned. You said that the tone was consistent enough. I thought sometimes the tone was a little bit too fantasy, a little bit too like it wanted to be real, but at the same time there's these fantasy elements that we have to suspend our disbeliefs at. And Brother Baxter was one of them. The ending was another one that I had a huge problem with. And I didn't buy a lot of things, but at the same time they try to make it so real, and this is what people went through, and I don't like that. I feel like the script is a little bit too inconsistent in what it wants us to believe, and whether it's supposed to be a grounded film or whether it's supposed to be a fantasy film, because there is such a thing as luck, and then there is such a thing as movie magic, and I feel a lot of the times this film has a lot more movie magic than I feel like the characters got lucky. Like, things happen because plot, and characters are like that because they're in a movie. And sometimes I cannot help but, get out of the movie and be like, hey, this isn't what people do in real life. And because the film tries to make us think that this could happen, and then they have characters that are pretty much just caricatures or two-dimensional characters, and because of that, you can't help but snap out of it and be like, hey, this is a movie.
Yeah, so this is where I disagree with you. I think that that's intentional. I think that the idea is not so much to depict the story that really could have happened, but to bring audiences back to a time when their dreams were not yet snuffed out by the cruelty of real life. And it's kind of like, you remember what you wanted when you were a kid. This is what it looks like if it all came true. So here's a little piece of that you can enjoy for an hour and a half, and then you go back to your real life. So I think that there's a very heavy element of wish fulfillment, and they anchor it in a setting with which the writer-director is familiar. So there's a touch of the personal, but I don't think it's meant to be gritty and realistic in that this really could have happened. This is really what it was like. I think it's supposed to take you back and make you... It is a Spielbergian almost kind of thing where when you watch E.T., they're like, gee, what happens if my best friend were an alien? And I think that the level of fantasy in that is presented in a different way, but it's in the same folder in my brain, and that's why I liked it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, I do. I
Yeah.
guess it's just an agree to disagree thing, because I don't see it that way. I feel like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too, and you think that they've done a good job at, having this fantasy dream of theirs.
Yeah, I think that we have all entertained similar ideas in our minds, like, oh, let's say what it shows in this movie is you want to go start a band, and how many bands succeed, how many people are able to, or have the resources, have the support to pursue, have the talent to begin with, and put in the effort to pursue their dreams all the way until fruition. Very few, but most of us remember a time when we had that dream. So this is kind of like, this is what it would be in a fantasy world if you could pursue that, if you did take it all the way, right? And yeah.
So you think Sing Street is more of a fantasy movie than it is a reality check on these things of pursuing your dreams?
I think that it's not fueled by cynicism. There is a tinge of cynicism, and a lot of it comes in the form of the brother Brandon, who is played by Jack Rayner. But at the same time, we hear it so often that, especially in the society that we're from, especially in Singapore, it's always like, if you have a dream, please put it aside, because a dream is not going to put food on the table, and it's not going to bring you money and not be able to raise a family. So go be an accountant, go be a doctor. So I understand where that comes from, and where that comes from is it's from the parents' concern that your children will not be able to make a living. And it is true. Being in the arts, it's really difficult for any artist of any kind, actor, singer, dancer, will know that there's this long stretch to struggle before you succeed, if you succeed at all. And I guess what the movie is about is not saying chase your dreams without abandon.
You see, I feel like you've summarized what I wanted Sing Street to be, which is the struggle, and to see and just like the artist struggle on how to get there, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I love your idea of what an artist is like in real life than what the movie portrayed, which is they just instantly became successful, or they just started writing good songs because he's talented, which is something that I don't like in a movie.
Right, yeah. So there does exist, there are movies like what you've described, and the example that comes to mind is Inside Llewyn Davis by the Coen brothers, and that is a movie of a perfectly unremarkable singer-songwriter who travels the country, he struggles, nothing very big comes of it. It's just his journey, and I feel that movie is quite honest, but it's also extremely depressing, and I don't think John Carney wanted to make a depressing movie. So I think as a flight of fancy, as something where, like, okay, so I suspend my disbelief and I watch this thing which there's no chance it would happen in real life, but I give into it, and I give into the joy that it creates, and I give into and I indulge. So I guess that's what this is. This is an indulgence, but I think it comes from a very honest place. It comes from a very sincere place, and that's why I gave into it, and that's why I bought into it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's like if you make a movie about an artist struggle that ends with you dying penniless in the gutter, it's not going
which is how most artists
exactly
die.
Yeah, it's not going to
and then
be
their works become famous after that.
Yeah, that it's not going to be a feel good movie, and I think that, like, what it is, it's too reductive to say it's about the innocence of childhood, but there's an element of it to that. It's about the hopefulness and the optimism of childhood, and the feeling that there are endless possibilities if only I could escape this terrible place where I was born, which is what every kid, no matter where they're from, no matter how terrible or how good a place they're born in, thinks. And I think that got a pulse of it, and that's what this movie, at its heart, is about.
Okay, so let's go on to spoilers soon. But
spoilers.
Obviously, both of us recommend this film, despite all the problems I have with it, and despite all the problems that you didn't have with it.
This is so good. Like, I heard so much about it from other sources. Like, I've seen posters where it's just all 5-star reviews, and I've heard people from overseas, they say on message boards, you must watch this, you have to. And actually, before watching it, I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, am I really gonna like this? Am I gonna be let down by it because it's so hyped? But I liked it a lot. And there are instances where there are movies which are sold as this great indie discovery of the year, and I watch it and like, I see that this is a good movie, but didn't do anything for me. And this was not one of those times.
That was 500 Days of Summer for me.
Yeah, 500 Days of Summer is an interesting one. Yeah, I could talk about it.
I also recommend this film, especially in this whole slew of like blockbuster films. And most of them are, well, not most of them. I think Star Trek is the only good one this year. But
really? Okay. Tarzan?
Yeah, like I really liked most of them, and sorry, what am I talking about? I really like this film a lot, and even though I had issues with the story, with the characters, and a little bit of the love story, I still think that the main actors, they're really charming, and the songs in it is super good as well, and it feels like a really good homage to the 80s music. I mean, I've seen music videos like that before, and there was this really cool Back to the Future reference that we're going to get into in spoilers that was kind of sweet.
Yes, and I love that, yeah.
So let's just go into spoilers then.
Alright, spoilers for
the message of Alright, so the message of the film is to not hold back, is to not hold yourself back and do what you love, which is fine, except in this film, the difference is that someone acted brash instead of thinking their way through, which is something that I do not think is a good message at all. Maybe because I like Leonardo from TMNT and he's all about strategy, and that is something that I hold dearly too. So yeah, I think that to chase down a dream, you also need to be smart about it. You cannot just say, oh man, after prom, I'm just gonna go run away with this girl and both of us are gonna find modeling careers and music careers. Like, that is not how it works, especially not in the arts industry. You need to know people. And what they did there was not good. And I think they would have easily died. And I have no idea how they didn't die because they made it seem like that was going to happen. And I'm glad they didn't die because that would have been an awful ending for a film that's so feel good and so sweet. But I don't like that was their end game, which is let's just drop everything we have and then go and pursue our dreams. With no cash, with no idea what we're gonna do there, with not knowing anyone there at all. Like, that is such a stupid idea, in my opinion.
Okay, so I agree with you to a certain extent, and so does John Carney. John Carney regrets how the film ended, and he wanted them to just die. So,
which is terrible. I don't want them to die. I just want them to think their way through.
Alright, so let me... I'm gonna look for the exact quote that he had, but yeah, what you've said is true. I don't think anyone in their right mind would have done what Connor and Rafina did, just run off at the end, but that is why I feel like there's a very large wish fulfillment quotient to the movie, and I'm not sure to what degree it's about encouraging kids to take this, and it's just like any movie where you can interpret it for yourself and take that. There are many movies where the actions of the protagonist are highly questionable, but they result in a good outcome. So you can take that and say, I'm going to do this, but it's not going to end up that way in real life because real life is real life. And I feel like this is one of those times. It's one of those times where the movie, it ran away into a fantasy world, but I felt that for me at least, it had earned it. It had earned the right to just say we're gonna throw everything away. And like, after watching the movie, I was like, yeah, this is totally not gonna work. Like, in a few weeks, at least, they're all gonna be penniless, destitute on the streets of London. They'll probably be mugged and shot and dead if the ocean hasn't got to them first. But the movie doesn't end a few weeks later. The movie ends there, and then just that's the end of it. What happens next? Probably terrible things, but we don't have to worry about that.
There is no way this would lead to a happy ending. Like, they would have easily broken up because they hardly know each other in the first place.
Exactly, and yeah, that's the way a lot of Disney movies are as well, where if you think too much about what happens afterwards, it's pretty depressing. It's like, there's no way a guy you had a crush on when you were 16 because you saw his face and his face looked handsome. That's not a decent foundation for a relationship.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things where I think that's why part of why I liked it is because this is difficult because like it's not. I don't think John Carney set out to make a realistic movie, or he set out to make a movie that is going to be used to teach anyone a lesson. I think that it is the characters in this movie do what we have all thought of doing, but we wouldn't dare to do it because we have thought it through. So this is like we'll throw common sense and logic to the wind because it's a movie.
But it's a terrible idea. That's the thing that I can't get behind. You cannot tell kids, hey, just abandon everything and go on. I mean, it worked out fine for Chris Pratt. Like, good for him. I think he's amazing. And he had the similar story where he dropped everything. He just went to California and he was penniless for like a year and was homeless for a year.
Right, yeah.
Or something like that. Yeah, and like, okay, fine. He's like, 0.0001% of the population that managed to be successful through that rashness and that brashness of it. But these people, I don't know, like, I cannot see them succeeding, and it's probably a sad ending in my opinion, even though they didn't die, but there was no way they would have been successful. And you know, they bring in all these real life elements to it, like, oh, these bands actually they exist in this universe. And we've never heard of Sing Street ever again, which means that they were never successful. So what the heck happened to those characters? We don't know. They probably died off.
So according to John Carney, the ending is a dream sequence.
Oh.
this is what he says. He says, I don't see it as just a happy romantic ending. I think that's a tone of the piece, but I think it's more like they're setting off together. That's true, but I wouldn't say that's some huge relationship that's going to last forever. They're kids.
Yeah.
I sort of hoped the scene at the end would look like a fantasy sequence. You're supposed to wonder where the reality ends and the music video begins. But people are actually taking it very seriously, and people are presuming it's fully real, which is interesting. That wasn't the intention.
Well, that was a terrible way to... I mean, okay, dude. Your whole movie, we understand that it's a small budget film. That's why even though the CGI looks like crap in the final scene, like we buy it because, okay, it's a small film. You cannot just say, oh, maybe this is a fantasy. Okay, fine. Let us interpret whether it's a fantasy or not by actually giving us hints whether it's a fantasy, and let us guess where the music video starts and where the reality stops. It's such a shitty cop-out, I'm sorry.
So this is what he says. He says, maybe I do want to have my cake and eat it. Maybe I do want to have a winning sequence, but there's an element of it could be a music video or a fantasy. So I think what he's saying is he's leaving it ambiguous. He's trying to say, here's what I think might have happened. I think that the whole movie ends after the rehearsal of Drive It Like You Stole It. That after that, Rafina never comes back. None of that happens. and
well, okay, fine. I'm good with that.
You are,
like,
right? And I think
fine.
that so that's for me, like, if it were a realistic movie, that's how it would end. That's just the end of it, and that's sad. But because they've already established this tone, they take it kind of all the way. And I think that this is a little bit okay. Here's the comparison for me. It's a bit like at the end of Grease, Sandy and Danny get in the car flies away, right? Mm-hmm. So there's the interpretation that the entirety of Grease is the dying dream that Sandy has as she's drowning, and it's a hallucination that she was never rescued on the beach by Danny, which is silly and nihilistic. But the reason why people say that is because the car flies off at the end, and of course, would a car fly off at the end in real life? No, it wouldn't. So for me, this is the equivalent of that.
Okay.
Right.
You know what? I really buy that it's probably not realistic at the end because he suddenly made friends with what's that guy? The bully.
Yeah, he hired
and
the bully
like
in as
okay
a roadie, yeah, which was cute.
Yeah. So okay, fine. I'm good with that ending if it didn't, because there is like I cannot see that happening where they almost get hit by a ship and nope, they survived it. Like, what the hell? Okay, sorry. But I mean, I felt like the film fell off at the ending, like the third act, after that music video that reminded me a little bit of Back to the Future. Can we talk about that
His
scene?
fantasy, yeah, which was beautiful in many, many ways, yeah.
Yeah, I really loved it. And can I just say that touching wood, but if they ever think of making a Back to the Future reboot, I think that this kid would be like an awesome Marty McFly. He has the humor, I don't think Marty McFly actually had dramatic chops, but he has the humor and he has the charm to carry that movie. So, Hollywood, if you're ever planning to do Back to the Future 2 or 4 or whatever, get this kid. He's pretty good. And he's a good singer.
He's great. He's really, really talented, but I know Michael J. Fox is Canadian, but I would very much want them to go with an American. We've heard Irish actors try American accents, and it's often painful. For all I know, Ferdia Walsh-Pillow could be really, really good with an American accent, but I think that if they're ever remaking Back to the Future, knock on wood, they should go with an American actor, just like they went with Alden Ehrenreich for Han Solo, because Han Solo is intrinsically a cowboy, a Western character, and I think that
I am super surprised that they went with an American, because the British are taking over Hollywood.
Yes.
And the Australians too.
Exactly, yeah. They've had to import their tough guys from elsewhere. Which is why we have Gerard Butler.
So let's talk about Drive It Like You Stole It, which is obviously the song of the film.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's all about, chase your dreams and stuff like that. A little bit too on the nose. But I really love that sequence. I think the song is really good, except for the part, I hate it when songs do this, but where they drop everything and then you start clapping. I hate it. Like, that you're clearly trying to get the beat inside my head, and I'm not gonna let you have that.
Oh, and then it's just like a chorus over
then it's like
yeah. I'm
yeah.
I'm fine with that because that's a convention of the music at the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that sequence, I thought it really crystallizes the tone of the movie in that there's so many bits in that dream sequence that are funny, but it's also on the whole really sad because you see this is his fantasy and this is what he can't have, and especially when the parents come in, I was like, oh, that was a gut punch, and then it's interesting that in the fantasy. Think about this, right? He visualizes Brother Baxter doing a cartwheel and joining in the fun. He doesn't visualize Brother Baxter getting viciously murdered, which is what would happen in my fantasy sequence if I had a principal like him. So it's quite interesting that this is what it shows what he wants. He wants his brother to come in and be a big brother and stand up for him and protect him and get into fights on his behalf. He wants his parents to stay together. He wants Rafina, of course, to end up with him, but he also wants Brother Baxter to be happy and to let go of it and join in the fun. So it was interesting in that it conveyed very visually, in a very showing, not telling way, all of the desires that Connor had at that moment, and I think that was a wonderful way to do it.
Yeah, I think so too. I really love that sequence. Yeah. So anything else you want to say about this film? The love story. Their first kiss was cute. Their second kiss was kind of weird.
Yeah, I like that. It was really awkward, but it didn't feel like fake Hollywood awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, like okay, this is not a very good example because I honestly like the chemistry, but there are a lot of points in The Amazing Spider-Man where Andrew Garfield is trying to be shy and dorky, and with Emma Stone, but it's clear they already completely 100% love each other. And I think that one of the things that worked in this one is there's a quite a big age gap between Ferdia Walsh-Wheeler and Lucy Boynton. Relatively, I think she's about 5 or 6 years older than he is. And it kind of worked in that way because she's supposed to be way beyond, she's supposed to be not even in his league. The idea is that none of the boys have been successful in getting her attention, but he has. So I kind of like that, yeah.
I think she looks so much prettier without her makeup.
Definitely. I think the whole idea of the makeup...
She has a pretty cry face.
Yeah,
her cry face is so beautiful to look at.
And
I feel so weird for saying it, but oh man, when she cried, my heart just broke.
Yeah, and I heard that she was actually one of the runner-ups for the role of Iris West in Rick Famuyiwa's Flash, but the role has gone to Kiersey Clemens, so he's cast somebody that he's worked with before.
I love that they decided to cast Iris without a race in mind. They decided, hey, let's just go with the best person, and that's what they did. And I'm really happy that they did that.
And I've seen someone use the hashtag "Make Iris White Again" unironically, and it really made my stomach turn because it's can we please are we still doing this? Are we still doing this where it's such a big sticking point? What does it even matter? So what?
And a little bit of representation is good, guys. It's fine.
Yeah, and this is a technique okay, we're digressing here, but this is a technique which a lot of directors, when they move from indie films to big blockbusters, if they're given the freedom to, they will cast someone that they've worked with before to retain connective tissue to their previous work and to remind them of their style and yeah, that's right, to remind of their roots. Exactly. And I think that's what he's doing, and by having the female lead be Kiersey Clemens, who was in Dope, I think that means that it won't run away from him, that he won't forget where he's come from, and it won't it will still retain a Rick Famuyiwa-ness, which is what you want from a director.
And I think a lot of people, they don't read the comics, so they don't really know who Iris West is, and in the TV series Iris West, she's black. So I think it helps also connect the TV audiences to the movie.
Yeah, maybe.
And those people who don't really know who the Flash is.
Yeah. At the same time, they said that they wanted to make it different from the TV show. So at least on the surface, it looks similar to begin with.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just a small part of it. It doesn't mean that just because Iris is black, that it's going to be exactly the same as the TV show. This is very reductive logic. Okay, so anyway, let's go back to Sing Street.
What's your favorite song?
Yeah, I wanted to just get into songs. That's right. So my favorite song is definitely "To Find You."
Yeah, all right. Okay, both of us have very similar tastes. Yeah, that's mine too.
It's a really simple 4 chords melody, and it's
what is wrong with Phil Collins? He did Tarzan, I think, Son of Man. It's really good. And I love not Can You Feel the Love Tonight. The other love song. What's it called? The one where he's like,
You'll Be in My Heart.
Yeah, that one. You'll Be in My Heart. Like, those two songs are awesome. Screw you, Sing Street. What the hell? Okay,
It's
but
Phil
besides
Collins
the song is good
from
too.
that era because he was very closely associated with Genesis, and they actually used this in. Have you seen American Psycho?
Which one?
The one with Christian Bale.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and there's a whole thing where he is like he's a really really pretentious character, and he talks in detail and he analyzes like Phil Collins, and it's very hipsterish because the idea is that it's a crappy band, but he's able to find some deep ironic meaning in it, and they use that to show how cynical the character is. And yeah,
okay.
So it's one of those like mimetically like, okay, I'm sure there are people who really sincerely enjoy Celine Dion or really sincerely enjoy Michael Bolton or really sincerely enjoy Bryan Adams, but the fact of the matter is that they've kind of become like shorthand jokes. Not to the extent of Nickelback, but it's kind of like people mimetically say it's bad even when they don't really mean it. So I think that's what happens.
And they're good singers too, so...
Sorry?
I think they're good singers. So...
Yeah, I think like the reason why they did that is they needed to establish what they are against in terms of their style. So, okay, let's say you like Duran Duran and you don't like Phil Collins. So you're going to stay...
But I feel like To Find You is a very Phil Collins-esque song. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Phil Collins, and I've only listened to a few of his songs outside of the Tarzan soundtrack. But it feels like something that's very in Phil Collins' zone, like To Find You, that song. I don't know, like it has cheesy lyrics, but it's super touching as well. And it has that slow tempo song, and it pulls your heartstrings. Like that's what that song is, and that's what Phil Collins mainly does.
It's a ballad, and that's the function of it. And I guess like I like how it was set up in the film, where they were like, don't play a slow song. A slow song is going to kill the vibe. But he had to do it. And I like that setup, that he felt so strongly about the song that he had to do it. And the introduction that he gives when he says, "Oh, this is for everyone who's..." What does he say exactly? And it turns out she's just a friend or something like that. And the way he delivers that line, where it's kind of sad, but it's also not melodramatic. It's very matter of fact. It's like, this is something that happened. Oh well. And then he goes into the song. I think that really gave it more impact.
Yeah. I really loved it too. It's a great moment. And I can't believe the singer, the main kid, he's not an actor. He's just a singer, and he did a really, really great job with this film, and I loved his performance in this.
Yeah.
Like, he can really be funny, but when it comes to the dramatic parts, he delivers his lines without making it sound, like you said, melodramatic. And there's a lot of heart, there's a lot of feelings that he puts into that delivery. And To Find You is one of those... that sequence is just so sad.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I really, really connected with it. And what John Carney has said is, he said he was specifically looking for actors who are not child actors, because he says that child actors have certain habits which make it look artificial and make it look like they're acting. And this is not the first director that I've heard say that. That ironically enough, you want somebody who's not trained, because then you get a more natural result. But yeah, at the same time, I don't think that that's like a blanket true thing. I think they really did an extensive search, and they came up with as good a person as they could possibly find. But gosh, yeah, he deserves to be a huge, huge star, because he's so likable in the movie, and he carries it so well. And
okay, trust me, after this film, he is definitely in talks to be like in one of the Marvel or DC films.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see that not happening.
Yeah, like I could see him as Spider-Man.
So, what did you think of that weird black guy joke in this film? Did it make you feel uncomfortable?
Okay, here's what I think. I think that the way they approach like the casual racism, it was in a way that made the people who were being racist look stupid. Like the whole part where you had what's the character's name? Hang on a moment. I forgot Darren, right? Yeah, Ben Carlin's character, and he was doing sign language because he thought that Engek did not speak
and talking
English.
really slowly.
Yeah, that makes him look stupid. That makes Darren look stupid. It doesn't reflect poorly on Endgeeks. And I think that kind of, when you talk about race in as frank a manner as that, I don't think it was malicious. I think that it's quite an accurate representation of how school kids would handle that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
great.
and yeah,
I like that scene too, and I was really afraid that people would be super upset over that scene. They're like, "Oh, it's racist," but it's like, "Oh, it's more of making fun of the person who is racist than it is, the black guy."
exactly.
What's his name?
Endgame.
Endgame.
Yeah, who is played by Percy Chamburuka.
All right.
Yeah, so and I like his mom saying, no, she's just 4 doors down. It's like that was a really funny moment because they were really on their way out.
Yeah. Okay. So let's just conclude this film, which is, like we said, great film. The ending, I'm just gonna go with, his fantasy just started the moment he sang during the rehearsal for the school prom, because I didn't like that ending.
To briefly go back to the songs, I think that some of the lyrics are a bit too polished. Like some of it does sound like it's professionally written. And that's a difficult balance to strike, because when you are a veteran songwriter and you want to sound like a 15-year-old, it will be really awkward. And I did not get a sense of that from any of this. So it did not sound like you're purposely dumbing down your style to make it sound like a kid wrote it, which is in itself quite condescending. So yeah, it's a give or take.
I really love the lyrics of some of the songs. Like,
yeah, me too.
Oh man, my heart. Yeah.
Yeah, to find you, like I've listened to that one obsessively, and I've actually learned how to play it on the violin.
Nice.
and
once you get a good setup, like, you can just help us do a recording of it, and then I'll put it in front of this podcast.
Oh, okay, yeah. I've like recorded like a crappy version of it. I'll send it over and see what you can do with it.
Okay, so let's go on to news.
All right.
There's not a lot of news that needed our attention or something that is worthy of discussing. So let's just go on to
there's
something that...
Yeah, all right. So before you jump into the first thing, there's something that isn't in the brief, and I'm sorry to spring it on you, but do you want to talk about Great Wall and the controversy about it? Yeah.
The only reason why people are talking about this movie is because Matt Damon is in it. And because of that, people are saying how it's racist, even though most of the cast is Chinese. And I really don't see a problem with him being in it, because it's just like The Last Samurai. Tom Cruise was in it. It didn't matter. And to me, what matters most is story. And it's just one white guy. I don't think we need to get all up in arms about that.
Yeah, so the issue for me is that it does look like it's going to be a white savior thing, where it looks like all of the Chinese people are ill-equipped to deal with the monsters, and it's only because Matt Damon and Willem Dafoe and who else is in this?
Willem Dafoe is in this?
Yeah, that.
Oh, I thought it was only Matt Damon.
No, there are a bunch of white guys in this, and the thing is that it's I understand what you're talking, like. With The Last Samurai, the argument can be made that it is a historical movie, and that there probably was a figure similar to the character that Tom Cruise plays who was in a similar situation. But in something like 47 Ronin, and in something like this, which is a fantasy, it feels very shoehorned in, like we have to come up with a convoluted excuse for a white guy to be in it.
But this is made by a China production, right?
Yeah, it's Zhang Yimou
mainly
directed.
A China production. Yeah, so I don't... Well, clearly he's alright with it, and just let the director do whatever he wants. He wants a white guy in his Chinese film, fine. If he wants an all-Chinese cast, then fine, good for him, because that's his movie, and it's not my right to tell him what to do and what not to do.
I think...
He's not harming anyone, so to me, that's like, it's fine. Like, do what you want. It's your creative outlet, and it's good for you that you managed to get someone, an A-lister like Matt Damon.
I honestly think that for this particular instance, it's not a huge problem. And I think it's actually pretty cool that Matt Damon is going to be in a Zhang Yimou movie, and that it's going to be filmed entirely in China. But I guess the thing that I'm bothered with is that it shows how unprepared audiences are, at least how unprepared the industry perceives audiences to be for an Asian actor to take the lead in a movie that is set in Asia, that is set in the past. It is kind of like, no matter what time period, no matter what place, we will find a way to make it about a white guy.
But China has been making movies for such a long time, and none of them, or at least most of them, don't feature white people.
That's
And
true, yeah.
how many Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragons can we get? Like, probably that's the only one that was successful in America, and they're clearly just doing this for marketing, and it's clearly working because everyone
Just
is talking about it.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, so like you're the reason why they keep making white people come into their all Chinese films. It's because you make such a huge issue about it instead of being, hey, is this story good or not? But yeah, and because of that, I'm okay with seeing a white guy because that's something that I don't see every day in my life.
Yeah.
And you can watch a China film anytime you want. You can watch a Korean film anytime you want, and they have like 0 white people in it, and that's exactly what people want, right? And I mean, oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I guess that the thing is that no matter where your story takes place, it has to be shown from an outsider's point of view. And an outsider in ancient China would be a white guy. So I guess that from the perspective of the story, that's why they're doing it. Because they're trying to it's the same thing with The Last Samurai, where the audience at large will be unfamiliar, especially Western audiences will be unfamiliar with the customs of the samurai and with the period. So you're looking at it through the eyes of an outsider.
Yeah, and I wanted to say something. Oh yeah. So I am not against white people being inside a Chinese film or whatever, and I definitely want Chinese people and Koreans and Indians and Malays and Black people, all that inside a Hollywood film full of a white cast. Or rather, I rather just have a diverse cast where they don't have to revert back to whatever native accent that they are supposed to have. Like, I hate that every single time an Indian shows up in a Hollywood film, they have this Indian accent when they clearly didn't grow up as in India, so their Indian accent isn't theirs. They have to do it because Hollywood thinks that every Indian talks that way.
Yeah,
and there's no such thing as an American-born Indian.
Right. Yeah. So.
And it really sucks. And I want a diverse movie where people are who they are, and they don't have to pretend that they're from this native land. I'm sorry, I'm like going off on a tangent here because I just saw Masters of None, and that really pissed me off too. As in the film, what the episode had to say really made me feel so bad for any working Asian actors in Hollywood. And I really hope that because we put a white person inside this all Chinese film, they do the freaking same. And they keep their American accent or whatever.
Yeah, so, alright, this is interesting, and I think this is worth discussing. So Aziz Ansari did Masters of None, and he said that he rejected the role in the first Transformers movie, the call center employee, who is the guy that Josh Duhamel is on the phone on, and he's giving him grief of like, do you have a credit card so that you can make the call. And Aziz Ansari said he rejected the role because he would have to do a stereotypical accent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so here's the thing, right? I feel that the only example anyone can point to is Fresh Off the Boat, and that there should be a lot more TV shows, a lot more films where in America there's the confidence to have an Asian American lead, because there are films and TV shows where they have an African American lead or a Latino, Hispanic lead. But it seems like if there are Asian or South Asian or Chinese or Korean characters in a show, they have to be somewhere in the background. They have to play supporting roles. And I guess that we are what is perhaps demonstrated by Great Wall is that the belief, whether it's true or not, by the industry that no matter what, it has to be anchored by a white guy. That the center of the movie has to be a white guy no matter what, and then you can have as many minorities as you want milling around the background, so long as it's not their face on the poster. That sounds reasonable, right? As a rationalization.
I really hope that Hollywood gets that mentality out of their
yes,
ass, because
it's frustrating.
Really working in TV where you can have a group of Asians or you can have a group of minorities together, and the TV show can be successful because all that matters is really character and story.
Yeah.
And it just sucks that we're still in this state. And it also sucks that we are still in this state where just because a white guy shows up in a Chinese film, people all up in arms about
right?
it.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not deeply, deeply bothered by this, but let's look at the cast of Rogue One, right? We've got Diego Luna is in it. I think Riz Ahmed is in it as well, and Jiang Wen, Donnie Yen. So you've got Forrest Whitaker. So you have a relatively diverse cast, but at the center, the main character is a white woman, is Felicity Jones. And I feel that it's possible that I know why they did it, and I don't have a huge issue with it. Like, I like Felicity Jones, but I think that there's just that lack of confidence. It's just that tiny little step that you bump one of those minority actors to your leading role and see what happens. Right? That if you say, I want a big name to bring in people, have your big name as a supporting role. You get what I mean, right? Like, yeah, it's really frustrating. Like, it looks like the movie is about Matt Damon. I don't think it would have been possible to bring Matt Damon in for a small part. But I'm saying that that's what should have been done. It should have been they brought in like a well-known Western actor to be a supporting role.
Well, we can't. One day I hope we'll get more Jackie Chans. Unfortunately, he's only there because of martial arts.
Yeah, and that's the only one people can name. And it's so frustrating when people are like, why not we have Jackie Chan instead of Matt Damon? No, it will not improve the movie. It's
But I guess we have to. I don't mind that Asians are put in the supporting role for now,
right?
Because that's when they start building up an audience, and that's when people want to watch their films. Like, I wouldn't have known about dang it, I can't say his name.
Aziz Ansari without Parks and Rec.
Yeah, from Parks and Rec. I wouldn't have known about him if it weren't for Parks and Rec.
Yes.
And because of that, I support his new show, which is called Masters of None, which is really, really good. And I think that we shouldn't want this huge change where suddenly Asian actors are leading movies. It's like, no, you have to slowly ease them in there so that people get used to them first, then you give them bigger roles that's beyond martial artists. But then again, I think a lot of action films nowadays, they all need some sort of martial arts in it too, so Asians are the best at that.
Like, what you've said is what I hope is the eventuality, and I definitely hope that is what we're building up to, and I hope that we get there sooner than later. And I think that so it is true what you've said, and especially about Aziz Ansari, that you garner and you generate an interest in yourself as playing a smaller role before you make the leap to being a star. And I hope that happens, and that happens with not just one or two actors of minorities, but it happens where it's just not an issue. And I think we're really far away from that, unfortunately. It feels like we're so far from it not being an issue, because we're talking about it now, and it's such a prickly thing for so many people.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about Meryl Streep. And she's going to be reunited with Emily Blunt in Mary Poppins Returns. That's what it's called. I think that she's going to get an Oscar nomination for this film.
Is she going to be? Like, I've not heard anything about this before I saw the bit in the brief. But is she going to be like Mary Poppins' mentor?
No. I think she's going to play a character in the book.
Oh.
That I've never read before.
Okay.
I think they're trying to... Yeah, I think they're going to have a more... How do you say this? A more faithful adaptation of Mary Poppins?
Right, like they're going to the source of the books. And it won't be like necessarily a direct sequel to the Julie Andrews one.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's...
She's going to play her cousin Topsy. So I have no idea who that is.
So she's also a magical character.
Yes.
I need Meryl Streep to be a magical character as well. I need Meryl Streep to also be to also have powers. Like, I don't want her to play a human being.
Yeah. Oh, she was a witch once. So
yes, in Death Becomes Her.
Oh no, I was
Into
thinking
the Woods.
of Into the Woods, yeah.
Right, yeah. So we'll like
cool stuff.
Is Mary?
I'm glad she's in it. I didn't really like Into the Woods though.
Into the Woods was interesting, and it's weird if you don't already have a connection to the musical.
I've never finished watching the musical before, so I didn't know about that second act, so I was kind of caught off guard. And I heard the musical was even worse. like how the princess started cheating on their wives or something like that. So that's not
Yeah, it's already much, much darker. And I mean, it's Sondheim. Sondheim's gonna turn things on its ear. So anyway,
yeah. And this is someone who read Fable telling you that, hey man, this is a really dark fairy tale.
Right, yeah. And wait, Lin-Manuel Miranda is in this. Who is he playing? Do you know who?
No, he's going to be in the theater, right? I have no idea.
No, I think Lin-Manuel.
We didn't do much research on this news.
I think Lin-Manuel Miranda is starring alongside Emily Blunt.
I thought he was only going to be in a theater musical.
Hang on, let me Google this.
I feel like he's in everything now. He's going to be in Moana too. So.
Yeah, he's like super overexposed, but I think he deserves it. He's a genius.
Yeah, he's really nice. Like, he's a really great guy.
Yeah, he deserves all of this stuff, and I hope people don't get tired of him.
Mm-hmm. Just like how people are getting tired of Margot Robbie now.
Margot Robbie? People are getting tired of Margot Robbie? Oh, okay. Like, well, I think they're trying to build her up to Jennifer Lawrence levels, and I don't know what will happen to her when she reaches that same height. Whether the backlash will be as fierce as it is to Jennifer Lawrence now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's an interesting thing about the hype machine and how it can backfire. Let's see. Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda is in the show, is in the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think
he's gonna play the dad.
He's the male lead.
I don't know.
Let's see. Mary Poppins Returns will star Blunt. Depression era London. Jade. It's about the kids it's about the bank's children, right? And they're grown up.
Yeah, all grown up.
I see. Yeah. And Lin-Manuel Miranda is playing a street lamp lighter. So I guess this is like analogous to Dick Van Dyke's character.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's the same, it'll be the same type, I guess.
Okay.
Because there was a chimney sweep, right? And this one is a street lamp lighter. So it sounds like, yeah, they're both like working class people who are pulled into the magic.
I should read the books. I probably wouldn't like it though because I heard it's very different. It's very depressing. So, okay, let's talk about Avengers Infinity War, which has been named Avengers Infinity War and Untitled Avengers. Well, in my opinion, I don't think Untitled Avengers is that great, but yeah, I'm being sarcastic, by the way.
I would love if that really was the title. If you came up in shadow in 3D letters, Untitled, and then underneath Avengers.
That would be kind of awesome. It's like, ooh, who is Untitled? You know, Untitled is such an awesome villain name, I'm just saying.
Yeah, it sounds very meta. It's kind of like Onomatopoeia in Green Arrow, where he's a villain who only makes sounds that sounds real objects make, but it only works in the comic book page. It doesn't work in live action. Yeah. Untitled.
So what did you think of this news? So I guess is it still a continuation of Avengers, like a direct continuation of Avengers Infinity War, or is it going to be
like, it may not be. It may be more standalone. I think that's why they took
that.
Yeah, I think that's why they took the title off. And I guess that this comes right after or almost simultaneously with the news that Justice League is not going to be a two-parter. Justice League is also doing something similar, where they're keeping the sequel, but they're not saying part 1, part 2. So yeah,
that's good. And
yeah, I think it's good because we just heard the news that the Divergent series, it backfired big time on them, and now they have to relocate the final chapter, Ascendant, to TV. So they made
that's really embarrassing.
Yeah, it is.
You know what? I feel so bad for all the actors in what's that place called, Divergent. It's so sad. Like, they're so talented and they're so nice. They're so talented, and I feel so bad for Miles Teller because it's just not. He's so many shit.
Yeah. He looks so out of place in those movies.
Yeah, and I love that he was saying how terrible of time he had filming Divergent.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad for him.
He was pulling a Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that because it's relocating to TV, the actors actually won't be back. That they kinda,
I think
so
too.
That they have to recast everything.
Unless they're really that desperate for work.
I don't think they are. I think Ansel Elgort is now like climbing the ranks because he's already signed on for the Dungeons and Dragons thing, and
yeah.
Shailene Woodley is a B+ lister, so yeah.
I hope she's in more things. I hardly see her in anything anymore. I'm sure she's working on a new indie film or something.
Yeah, and she was she's in that Snowden movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's right. The Oliver Stone Snowden movie. I think she's playing the female lead.
Okay.
Yeah. And she was almost Mary Jane. That didn't happen.
All right, never mind. I think we're going off the tangent again.
Yeah.
So yeah, great news. Okay. This came out last week, but we didn't talk about it because of all the Marvel and DC stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it's pretty huge. Another video game movie, and we talked about this before, Pikachu, and I wanted it to be a boy and his ex story, but it turns out it's going to be Detective Pikachu. So do you know anything about Detective Pikachu, Jed?
No, I don't. It just sounds kind of random to make that as a live action movie.
It is amazing. So Detective Pikachu is like Pikachu, who has this really low voice, and he can only speak to this one guy, and then they go around solving crimes, and it's just as bizarre as you think it is. And I love that this is the movie that they're going for. It is so much better than any of my boy and his ex story, because this sounds so damn fun, and I think it will work for the whole live action and animation hybrid thing, because it is live action and animation hybrid is inherently silly, and Detective Pikachu is so silly, and I can't wait for this now. I hope that this is the next Paddington Bear, because Paddington was so awesome, and if they know how to cater to how stupid and ridiculous Detective Pikachu is, I think this film would be amazing. And too bad Phil Lord and Chris Miller are not available, because this is their type of movie.
It does, right? It
It's
sounds
destined
just
to
like it,
fill.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's destined to fill, but there's a gem inside it. You just have to dig really, really deep.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that this is actually an ingenious strategy, because they're not
It is.
touching, what everyone expected, which is you do Ash, Misty, Brock, Team Rocket. They're not doing that, yeah.
And the thing is, like, you can think of a 3 arc story with Detective Pikachu, and not have, the real Pokemon journey where there's 8 gyms and then there's the Elite Four. Like, this is genius, and whoever thought of this idea is a genius, and I hope they get the right writer to do this film. You need to be silly in this film. You really have to. Get a British writer. I think a British writer would make such an awesome story out of this.
Do you think that this is paving the way for like a mainstream canon live action Pokemon film? Like they're testing the waters with this, and then
Yes,
it is, right?
yes.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant because you're not, like you said, you're not touching the sacred story.
Right, yeah.
And you're just doing something that's already stupid.
Mhm.
And if the film turns out to be stupid and bad, at least you can always be like, yeah, but the game is stupid. And it's not bad. Like, it's not a bad game at all. It's really cute.
I see. Okay, so yeah, this came out a bit out of left field, and it sounds, from what you're telling me, it sounds like a good idea to test the waters with this. And like Max Landis said, he went in and pitched something.
Sorry.
So, and he's not writing this, right? He's not writing Detective
Nope.
Pikachu. Okay.
Thank God.
Yeah. And what do you think
God,
of?
can you imagine someone cynical like him writing this?
What do you think of this fan suggestion of Danny DeVito as the voice of Detective Pikachu?
Yes, I agree with that.
Sounds like a good
because
idea, yeah.
I first heard him on Hercules.
Yes,
And he's
that's
always playing the
right.
short character.
Exactly, yeah. He's
And like the Lorax too, so I think he's perfectly awesome. But other people have suggested Benedict Cumberbatch too, which I like.
because of the Sherlock connection, yeah, it's a meta thing.
Oh, it's because he's British.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
mainly because he's British, and I love his voice.
Yeah, okay, so we'll see what happens with that. That sounds like it's pretty clever once you think about what you're doing.
Yeah, oh my god, like it is. Only a genius could come up with this idea. But I hope they get the right writers.
Yeah.
Okay, so movies coming out next week.
Very small movie that no one's interested in watching.
Yeah, and like when you go to cosplay conventions, you only see like a handful of them playing Harley Quinn.
Yeah. There's just
Suicide
one or two,
Squad.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's excited about this. Like it'll just
Not
come
at
out
all.
and just go back.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't the number one talked about thing on Twitter
Yeah.
when Comic-Con came around.
Yeah, like Will Smith is not
So-
in it.
Everyone's so sick of Margot Robbie.
Yeah. Oh gosh, so yeah, I can't wait for you to watch it and for you to tell me what you think and for me to tell you what I think, because you've been saying that this is your number one anticipated film the whole year, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm gonna exercise self-control. I'm gonna watch it at least 2 times more, so it'll be very fresh in my head when we talk about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Suicide Squad too. Oh man, like, I shouldn't say that I'm rooting for this film because a lot of films that I rooted this year did not do well, box office and critically. So I'm gonna be like, Suicide Squad, I hope you suck, and I hope I hate you. So see you guys next week.
Alright, thanks Sherry, and thanks for listening everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.